Hey guys, welcome to Lingua Marina. Today we're gonna have a longer class where we're gonna work on our pronunciation, and speaking like a native is not just about the right pronunciation of words, it's also about understanding native speakers who tend to speak really fast, who tend to swallow sounds, and sometimes when you come to a new country, or even if you travel to another part of an English-speaking country, you encounter so many different people speaking in a weird way. This video is for you to understand everyone. Now, this is a compilation of my best classes, so make sure you have a notebook, make sure you're all ears. Let's do it. Let's learn to speak like a native. The first trick. Sometimes we say, I should have done this. Normally, like at school, they would teach us to contract things, so they would teach us to say, I should have done this. But again, when we're speaking English and when we try to sound like native speakers, the rule of thumb here, and rule of thumb is like what you normally would do, is to sit down and relax. And when you sit down, relax, you just don't want to speak like this. Should have is a little, well, it sounds natural, but still, it could be done easier. So what is an easy way? Shoulda. I should have done this. Just try pronouncing it yourself.
Maybe we should have done this online.
Again, another trick with English, whenever you hear something, try pronouncing it yourself, because just because you hear it doesn't mean you're gonna use it. You're gonna use it if you pronounce it, and if your muscles are like, oh, this is the way it works. And it's like exercise. The more you exercise, the better you are at what you're doing. So pronounce with me. I should have done this. Shoulda. Okay, now we're talking about English that you can use in your daily life. We're not talking about English that you're going to use in the classroom or when you're passing an interview to Harvard. When you're speaking academically, you'll be like, I should have done this. But when you're like with your friends, when you're in the environment, I should have done this.
Oh, I should have done that this morning.
The same with could have and would have. I could have done this. I would have done this. Why I showed this like dance to you? Because again, English is very optimized for like singing. When I was doing a lot of singing classes, my singing teacher would tell me that I sing a lot better in English. Just because, you know, the way people speak English, it's like a song. They connect words. Shoulda, coulda, and it adds some rhythm. So practice with me. I should have done this. I could have done this. I would have done this. The next word is a preposition of. First of all, it's not of, it's of. We're gonna show some transcription here. So it's not this, it's not of, it's of. Cup of tea. But if you wanna sound like a native speaker, if you listen to how they're saying this, they're saying it cup of tea. And this is very British, cup of tea. Okay, American, a lot of stuff. Cup of tea. It's no longer of, it's just cup of tea.
Cup of tea.
Lot of stuff.
It's got a lot of stuff.
So whenever you have off in your phrase and the next word starts with a consonant, there is a big chance that a native speaker would replace of with a. Lot of stuff.
I did a lot of stuff here too.
Lot of water.
It's a lot of water.
A lot of trash.
A lot of trash.
A lot of clothes.
Not a lot of clothes.
If you want to learn more English with me, if you want more materials that you can use while watching my classes, I have a huge workbook. It's over 180 pages and it has a lot of exercises that you can practice with. It has a lot of tables that have idioms or other vocabulary that you can use. It has a lot of grammatical explanations. So I highly recommend you to go ahead and purchase this book. It's less than $8 and it will really enhance your learning experience. And this is something that I've done a year ago and the reviews about this workbook have been amazing. So the link will be down below. Now let's talk about reductions. That are words that sound with an H, like him, her, he, have. And if they are unstressed in a sentence, and remember in English, when we're pronouncing something like a sentence, we have a stress that goes on a particular word. There is no like stress in every single word. So when these words go unstressed, people tend to just omit the letter H and the sound that it corresponds to. Example, I tell her about that. Very kind of, I don't know, artificial. Not artificial way, native speaker way. I tell her about that. So we don't even have two words here. We don't have tell and we don't have her. We have one word that is tell her.
Tell her.
I tell her that. Tell her.
Tell her.
Instead of I tell him, I say I tell him. Again, new word. I tell him.
Tell him.
I told her? Nah. I told her. Let's look at more examples. Was he there? Just try yourself. Was he there? Say it in a native speaker way. Was he there? Was he? Was he there? We went to a party yesterday. Was he there?
Why was he there?
And once you see, like, now you understand. Like, if I showed this phrase to myself maybe like 7 years ago, I would be like, what is she saying? Just because I didn't know all the tricks. And now you know them. Write them down. Don't forget about them. At first, he was surprised. At first, he was surprised. First, he instead of first, he.
At first he was angry.
What have we done? What have we done? I saw him yesterday. I saw him yesterday.
Saw him yesterday at the bank.
Faster, smoother, more natural. Let's move further. Let's talk about intonation. Oh, it is so difficult. Which means, yeah, it's difficult. But when you say, oh, it's so difficult. Sarcasm. It is not difficult at all. Again, the way you stress words, the way you phrase something is really, really important. Now let's make a quick exercise. What do I mean here? Yeah, the movie was really scary. It's number one. Number two. Yeah, the movie was really scary. What did I mean in both sentences? First sentence that it was scary, second sentence that it wasn't scary at all. In one of my previous videos, we talked about assimilation, and if you haven't watched that video, the link will be down below. Please don't forget to watch the whole series about how to speak English fast and understand native speakers. It's really important. And the example of assimilation was don't you versus don't ya, or meet you versus meet ya. That was assimilation. Today I'm going to talk about some other examples that are maybe not so obvious. Contraction of the phrase what are you sounds like whatcha. What you doing? Instead of what are you doing, you say what you doing. What are you talking about? What you talking about. What are you saying? What you saying. Contraction of what have you sounds like whatcha. What you've been doing. What you've been up to. Whatcha is also a contraction of a phrase what do you. What do you think? What you think. What do you want to do now? What you want to do now. And whatcha is also a contraction of what you. Do what you gotta do. Instead of do what you got to do.
Do what you gotta do.
Again, this is something that you learn as you go. They all sound like watcha, but you will guess the meaning from the context and you're gonna get there. It's not that difficult, but once you know the trick, it makes it easier. Something that happened to me, well, I would say recently, a couple of years ago, when I was babysitting my aunt's dog, I started to talk to a lot of Americans who had a dog as well because I was walking my dog. And I walk with the dog and I hear people say, who's a good boy? Good boy. Or another phrase, who's a good girl? So basically what I heard there, I heard them saying, not good boy. Who's a good boy? Nobody said that. They took the word good and replaced D with the first letter of a word that followed. Who's a good boy? Good boy. Who's a good girl? And if you pronounce it the way they did it, it was like, who's a good boy? Who's a good girl? And I was like, am I hearing something? And I was like, yes, I'm hearing something. And this is the way I learn accents. I just listen to people and I'm like, wow, this sounds confusing. This is not the way it's written. Sometimes I would just ask them to repeat because I want to understand what's going on, and they go on and explain me the way they pronounce it. And it's not a rule, guys. So whatever we're talking about in my videos, about the pronunciation. These are not rules. This is just something that I notice when I walk around California and I hear people speak when I travel. And these are just notes that I'm sharing with you. Again, when we're talking about learning a language and understanding others, it's all about, first of all, it's all about understanding, because when you know the tricks, you're able to understand them better. But also, like if you decide someday that you want to adopt some of the accents like I did when I first came to the US, I was ordering coffee and I said hot coffee and they gave me cold coffee because you pronounce hot this way, not hot. You say hot. And, I had to drink cold coffee it was New York and it was kind of cold. It was May. And I was a little upset and I told myself, I gotta learn American accent. And I think my accent has changed completely since I moved to the US, and it's changing every year. It's changing because I encounter more and more people. I encounter more and more situations where people would say something and I would be like, wow, this is weird. Like, we need to stop here. I need to analyze this. So let's move into the video. Let's continue with whatever I just mentioned. Why do native speakers do this? Why do they say good boy, good girl? Again, the rule here is that they just want to speed up everything. And English is this great language to sing in. So whenever you're singing, you just want to emit sounds. You want to emit something that stops you, that makes you kind of stop and take a breath. You just want to connect everything. So good boy is a little like, good girl is a little, but if you say good boy, it's like one word.
Good boy.
Easy, right? This is why people do that. This is called assimilation or sound change in the English language, and it is quite common. Another example of the sound change is white paper. White paper. So I kind of say white paper, but because I'm connecting, it's even like one sound. It's not white paper. White paper is British. So British is this formal kind of language where you try to pronounce more sounds than Americans do. And white paper is very British. White paper is very American. Another great example, speedboat. Americans, I guess, don't say speedboat. I don't say speedboat. I say speedboat. Speedboat. But then it's connected, so speedboat.
The speedboat.
So you see what's happening here? Just, I do not expect that you would use it. I just want you to realize that it is happening because it would help you understand native speakers a lot better. And because of the way the different sounds are made in our mouth, sometimes we get a completely different situation. Let me give you an example. I can go now, and it sounds like can't go. So we kind of add another G at the end of the word can.
I can go.
Can buy. I can buy. Instead of saying can buy, I say can buy. I can buy this.
You can buy new ones.
Again, because can buy is just a lot of movement that has to happen in my mouth. But if I say can buy, I'm already shutting my mouth in order to pronounce the sound B, and it's can buy. So yeah, I know they don't teach that at school because there is no formal rule on when you replace the sound N with M. This is something you learn on this YouTube channel. So if you're not yet subscribed, you know what to do. Green Park. It's Green Park. It's not Green Park, the way it's pronounced. Do you want to take a walk at Green Park on Monday? On Monday. Are you joining me for a class on Monday? On Monday. Something like this. Some of the other thing we talked about in my previous videos about how to sound like a native speaker and speak English faster. If you haven't watched them, you totally have to watch them. The links will be down below. They're really important for, I guess, anyone who's learning English, because if you don't want to speak fast, at least you want to be able to understand other people. So we talked about elision, where sounds disappear, and just wanted to remind you of a couple examples, because sometimes when letters T and D appear between two consonants, they tend to disappear. Let me give you some examples. That was the worst job I've ever had. But I would really say, that was the worst job I've ever had. You see, T disappeared. Worst job. Where is it? I don't know. Just one person came to the party. Just one person came to the party. Where is T? I don't know.
Just one.
And let me give you a couple last examples that would blow your mind. Handbag. It's handbag, but N and D are replaced by an M. So D disappears, right? Because of elision. And then N is replaced by M because of sound change, assimilation. So handbag, D disappears, N is changed into M. Handbag. Who taught you that? I don't know. St. Paul's Cathedral. Again, what happens here? T disappears because of elision, but then N is replaced with an M because of assimilation. St. Paul's Cathedral. It's not St. Paul's Cathedral. Well, in Great Britain, it's St. Paul's Cathedral. But in America, St. Paul's Cathedral. The next tip, open your mouth. When you try to speak English fast and you hear native speakers speak English fast, you are tempted to just speak fast. But the way it works with native speakers, they've done it so many times. They pronounce so many sounds. It comes naturally. When you try to speak fast without enough practice, we tend to eat sounds. And I made this mistake. Again, when I came to the US, I wanted to sound more natural. And I started just speaking as fast as I could. Normally I'm a fast speaker. Even like when I'm speaking Russian, people complain on my Russian channel that I speak too fast. Maybe you complain. You don't complain. You guys, the nicest audience I've ever had. You never complain, you only thank me. But I know I can be too fast sometimes. The thing is, in some cultures like Russian, or I would say some Asian cultures, we don't open our mouth the way Americans do. So and sometimes it is crucial, like pen and pan. Two completely different words. And you see how I open my mouth when I say pan. That makes a huge difference. Bad versus bed. Two completely different words. Again, if you mess it up, if you forget to open your mouth, people will probably guess the meaning of the word just from the context. But, sometimes the context is also confusing and you don't want to confuse people too much all the time. So open your mouth. Bed versus bad.
Bed.
Pack versus peck. And let's practice some listening skills. I'm gonna say a word and you need to guess which word it is, which one came first. And beg, bag, pat, pet. Completely different words. Present perfect versus past simple. Another thing kind of differs from British English to American English. But basically what happens in British English, they tend to use present perfect more. In Great Britain, they say, I've just arrived home, which is kind of grammatically more correct than using past simple, because when you say I've just arrived, that means you're stating the fact that you're at home, and present perfect would be the perfect tense here. In America, again, people tend to simplify everything, and Americans would say, I just arrived. It's faster, right? In terms of like grammar, I would say, well, it works, but still when we use past simple, we want to add more details. We're telling a story, but we're not stating our current state. We state actions in the past. With present perfect, we kind of want to emphasize that we're at home. So in this very case, I would say present perfect is more correct, but Americans use past simple. That doesn't mean that if you're learning American accent, you don't have to learn a present perfect. You have to. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you're still confused about the tenses, if you need more information on tenses, if you need tables, if you need explanations, if you need additional videos from me, I have the whole workbook that focuses on English language, but we have the whole section on English tenses. I try to explain them in the easiest way possible because I know how important they are and how confusing they are. And we also have a lot of tables that would help you learn more idioms, learn more vocabulary, learn necessary grammar, so the link will be down below. It costs $7.95, and I think it's a great chance for you guys to have some materials while you go through my videos and learn English. The link down below, check it out, my English language workbook. And the last but not the least for today, exaggerate. Americans exaggerate everything. I guess, well, American culture is like everything is so bright here. Everything is so amazing. And, people just, I don't even know, when they're positive, they're really positive. When they tend to be less negative, and I kind of like it, again, coming from a culture where people are not like showing their emotions too much. But the thing is, when I came to the US, when everyone is smiling, when everyone is like, oh my God, your dress is amazing. That just helps me get through the day. I feel happier. I don't know, it depends on the kind of person you are, but I personally like it. And if you want to sound more American, this salad is not good. This salad is absolutely the best salad I've ever eaten my whole life.
This is the best thing I've ever tasted.
Or this video is not just a good video. Oh my god, this was the best video I've ever seen in the past few years. Oh my god, Marina, you're amazing. Do this in the comments. Or another thing that's kind of confusing, when you text someone on the phone and you've been texting each other for like a couple of months and they call you friend. Again, in a culture where I come from, this is unacceptable. Like, friends are people who you hang out with for years, who you trust, you've seen many, many times. Again, it's just another cultural aspect that you have to understand, have to learn, not necessarily use it, but just understand that this is the way it works most of the times in the US. You know, accents are beautiful. You can speak with whichever accent you prefer, British, Canadian, your own, maybe some Russian accent to make some difference on this channel. Maybe we should teach this. But anyways, you choose whatever you want to do. It's up to you. But I think it's really important to understand what native speakers do when they speak English, because once you know what they're doing, it's easier for you to understand them. So switch on your ears, write things down, because some of them you'll be like, oh my god, really? That's exactly what they're doing. Why haven't I noticed that before? The exact same thing happened to me when I started kind of studying American accent, when I started exploring what are those people doing out there? What are they doing with their mouths and lips? What is going on? So today we're going to talk about that. Continue watching this video, but before we get into the topic, please hit subscribe and hit the like button. Okay, did you hear how I pronounce button? Button. And this is the first thing that we're going to talk about today. It is glottal stop. So if you watched my previous videos on this topic, and if you haven't watched them, the links will be down below. Please watch them because they're really interesting, really exciting, and they're performing really well on this channel. So glottal stop, glottal sound. I think T is one of the most difficult sounds in English just because it has so many variations in different accents and different dialects and just the way people pronounce it. In one of my last videos, we talked about the word beautiful, which actually is pronounced as beautiful. It's almost D that is almost an R. It's beautiful. You know, I'm using this mic so you could hear all the nuances. Beautiful. I think it's almost R.
Not penny beautiful, but beautiful.
And then water. It's water. It's not water. Water, it would be British. Water is what Americans say.
Water.
So again, I would have been confused if I heard this word maybe 20 years ago when I was just starting learning English, and if I learned water and then somebody says water, I would be like, what? What does that mean? And the same with letter, and then Americans say letter.
Letter?
But this was T changing into D or R. Now we're gonna talk about T kind of disappearing and evolving into this glottal sound. The glottal stop is not officially recognized by the English language rules. And it's just something that you learn from videos like this. If you're wondering how do you actually pronounce what is this glottal stop, if you say uh-oh, so something that comes in between those two sounds is this glottal stop. This kind of as if somebody's holding you by the neck. This is the glottal stop. So for example, let's say the word button. Here you go. Initially you would pronounce button with a T, but native speakers would often use the glottal stop here. So it's button. 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 You know, just try and mimic this. That's the only way I can explain. So first train with uh-oh, this glottal stop, and then you just add it into the word button.
Todd hit the button.
What button?
There are some other examples. This glottal stop is both used in American and British, but I feel like the British people use it more. If you are studying British accent, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that mountain is very British. This is when I'm replacing T with the glottal stop.
Mountain elf.
Curtain is very British. Curtain. In America, we would say curtain. Curtain.
The curtain rises.
Kind of disappears, but it's still kind of there. So when we pronounce the regular T, my tongue would touch my teeth, the back of my teeth. When I'm kind of speeding everything up and trying to sound like a native speaker, I would say curtain. So my tongue kind of goes there, but it stops before it hits my teeth. It's curtain. But if I want to sound more British, I'll say curtain. In the British version, my tongue doesn't even make an attempt to hit my teeth. Another example to sound very British, forgotten. You replace T with a glottal stop.
Forgotten.
Again, there is no rule where you replace T with a glottal stop, glottal, even in the word glottal, you replace it. You just listen to people around you. Like if you're in Great Britain, you would just hear people using it more and more. If you're in the US, you will sometimes hear people using it. But my advice would be learn that it exists. And then once you're in the language speaking environment, once you're in the US or Great Britain, just, depending on where you are, listen to people around you, and you would eventually, I guess you will eventually just mimic people who are around you. That's what happens to me all the time. When I'm in California, I kind of speak like Californians. When I'm in Great Britain, I adapt. It depends on the way your brain works. My brain works that I'm mimicking everything. But yeah, glottal stop. Here you go. Now you know what it is. By the way, guys, if you want more explanations when people talk about where your tongue goes or how your mouth opens or how your muscles should work, I'm not a specialist in that. I'm more a specialist of describing what's going on with the sounds. But my friend Venya, who's originally from Russia, but no one could ever tell that. Well, I can't tell that. He has mastered the skill of explaining people how to open their mouth to sound like an American. And he has the whole course on a platform called LinguaTrip, which I co-founded. And if you want to check out this course, highly recommend it. One of my friends recently took it, and he was at home with me. One of the classes, he listened for 6 minutes of the class, and he said, I now know more than I learned at school about how to open his mouth. And instantly his speech was a lot more natural. So highly recommend this course. The link will be down below. The next trick, can versus can't. Here we have a very unique situation. So T in the word can't and wouldn't and shouldn't and couldn't, this T is super important because it changes the meaning of the whole sentence. Because I can't help you with this. But the problem is Americans don't really pronounce this T in the end. They say, I can't do this. And the only way for you to understand whether they meant can't with a T or can without a T is to pay attention to which word they stress when they talk about something. Let's look at a couple of examples. I can't help you. So I say I can't help you, but because I'm emphasizing can, that really means I can't help you. I cannot help you.
I can't help you.
But on the other hand, if I want to say I can help you, meaning that I'm able to help you, then I'm emphasizing the word help. I can't help you versus I can help you.
Can't help you.
I can help you.
So again, the rule here is when you emphasize that you're able to do something, you emphasize the verb. I can cook lasagna. But if you want to emphasize that you can't do something, you emphasize the word can't. I can't cook lasagna. Never done that before. Let's just try another example so that you remember and understand correctly. My husband can drive a car. That means he's able to drive a car. My husband can't drive a car. He's unable to do that. Again, I'm kind of doing this over the top so you could hear the difference, but normally people would just say, I can't do that. Nah, I'm unable to do that. That's it. Another tip, it's not gonna relate to the way you pronounce words, it's just gonna relate to the way you learn the language. So basically what happens to me is that I know some words, but then people start using them in a context that I do not understand. So whenever you don't understand something, Google the whole phrase, because sometimes the whole phrase has a completely different meaning from what you expected because you knew only one meaning of the word that it's used in the phrase. And sometimes words have 10 different meanings. There are a couple of resources that I just wanted to recommend. I would always use Urban Dictionary because, sometimes people are swearing at you or saying inappropriate things or just saying things that mean completely different things that a normal dictionary would tell you. So whenever I'm confused and whenever I feel that something I'm reading online or just engaging with people on social media, when I feel that this is an informal kind of speech, I would go to Urban Dictionary first and check what that means. And normally I would get the right definition, because if I just Google this word on its own, I would get something really formal and it wouldn't make sense. And another great website is called dopeoplesay.com. On that website, you also find words that people use in their everyday lives, and they might use them in completely different meanings versus what the standard dictionary tells you. The next, you versus oo. When I started on YouTube in the US, I would say YouTube, because British people say YouTube, and this is where I've heard about this platform for the first time, and I continued saying YouTube, and then the underground in London is the tube, and I just said tube all the time, and people laughed at me. And I was like, why are they trolling me? YouTube is YouTube. And then I started watching more American bloggers, and I realized it's actually YouTube. So the thing is, in American English, in words like student, YouTube, duty, new, you would just say the sound oo instead of saying you. So instead of saying student, it's kind of British, right? Kind of what we were taught at school. Student is what people say in the US.
A student? A student.
The word ain't. Is he coming? No, he ain't coming.
Max, you ain't coming.
I ain't gonna do that.
Just ain't gonna do that.
Have you heard that before? Of course you have. I've heard it many, many times. So first of all, ain't is this word that kind of replaces a lot of different things. Am not, is not, has not. So basically, if you don't want to learn grammar, you can just use ain't all the time, but it is super spoken, like spoken English. You can't really use it in an interview, you can't really use it in an essay. Not all of the native speakers use it, but it is pretty common to say, he ain't doing that. So when you hear it next time, you know it's replacing either is not, has not, am not, and you can also use it in your speech if you want. The next word that you need to know, and absolutely use it. It's spoken, but it's super useful. Appreciate it. And please pay my attention to my mouth. It's not appreciated, it's appreciated. So for example, your server brings you food at a restaurant. Instead of saying thank you, which is kind of basic, and of course you can say that, you say appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Or somebody gives you a favor, there is a long line and you're with a baby, and somebody tells you, oh, get in front of the line and get your coffee faster than we do. And you're like, appreciate it. Appreciate it. This is just the way to fasten your speech and to sound more, let's say, American. I don't know, a lot of examples here, by the way, guys. I'm not a native speaker. I live in the US, and a lot of things that I notice in my everyday life are very American because I live in California. Pretty sure if you travel to other countries, you would notice other things, but I think American English is the most popular version of English, so we're learning it here. Prepare, the next one is gonna blow your mind. No, yeah. You have two words, no and yeah, which actually means yes. Do you want a coffee? No, yeah. No, yeah. I don't know. It exists in my native language, Russian. It exists in American English. In California, a lot of people also say, yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
Which is, again, two words. And this phrase actually means no. Do you want to go out tonight? Yeah, no. I don't want to. I'd rather stay home. Yeah, no means no. No, yeah means yes. I know, super confusing, just write it down. But also, you will notice based on the intonation, based on visual signs, you would understand whether it's a yes or no. Don't be sorry, be afraid. When you want to say I'm sorry, but in reality you did nothing wrong, you actually say I'm afraid. Like for example, oh my God, listen to this, guys. This is super crazy. We're trying to buy a car right now. This is a real thing that's happening right now. We are trying to buy a car in the US. We're trying to buy a new car, a Cadillac. There are no cars. And because there is a chip shortage and chips that are manufactured at a particular plant somewhere in China, they had to stop due to coronavirus, and now all the new cars require this chip. That's why I've been waiting for my Tesla for 10 months, and now we're trying to get a Cadillac because we want a big family car, and it's unavailable. You have to wait for like 4 months if you're lucky. So we come to this car dealership, and I tell them, I want to get a Cadillac. And instead of saying, I'm sorry, miss, we don't have any Cadillacs available, they tell me, I'm afraid we don't have anything available. Because, like, they haven't done anything wrong. They don't need to apologize and say, I'm sorry. So they say, I'm afraid we don't have any available. Or just to give you a couple more examples so you understand how the phrase is used, sometimes you talk to a person and they explain some concept and you're like, I'm afraid I don't understand it. Because you're not making a mistake by not understanding what they mean, but you say, I'm afraid I don't get it. Or I'm afraid I don't understand it. And I hear this phrase, I'm afraid, a lot. Normally when people don't have anything left, like Cadillacs or chocolate. I'm afraid we don't have any chocolate left. I'm afraid we don't have any apartments available. I'm afraid we don't have any tables till February 2023. Like, America is this crazy country where people, I guess, have a lot of money and you have to compete for basically everything. We competed to get this house. We're competing to buy a car. I don't know. Just, sharing some reality with you guys. Well, this is probably particular to Silicon Valley. Probably different places, but Silicon Valley, super competitive. Okay, let's move on to the next tip on how to sound like a native speaker. Have you ever heard a phrase or something similar to this phrase? They are a great doctor. I'm glad I found them. But they are a great doctor. So we understand we're actually talking about a person, but we are relating to that person as they or them. Why is this happening? Basically, when you don't know the gender of the person, you can relate to that person as they or them. They are a great doctor. They are a great teacher, whatever. Also, like, because of this thing, especially in California, again, like, for example, people here can choose their gender and can change their gender. And sometimes they don't want any gender at all. And you might have noticed that sometimes on Instagram, you see that people ask them to refer to themselves as he or she or they. So when they choose they, that means they are gender neutral. They don't want to be associated with male or female.
My pronouns are they, them, but no worries.
And yeah, you refer to them as they. So don't get confused. It's actually a single person, just the way we refer to that person. And also, again, California, there are a lot of gender neutral restrooms. There are certain rules. For example, you don't have to have a gender on your birth certificate anymore, because you might decide later when you grow up. You can have different attitude to what's happening, but I also see how it's beneficial for some people. Again, something that's happened in California, again, sounds really weird for me as a Russian. We don't have something like that in Russia, but this is a reality here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video up to the very end. I hope it was useful and I hope you practiced your pronunciation all along, and I hope that now whenever you listen to a song by an American, you'll be like, oh, I know what she just said. I know what he just sang, because Marina taught me. If you're not yet subscribed, hit the red button down below and I will see you very soon in my next videos. Bye bye.